Hi you guys, this is Nicole from My Carolina Garden, and I garden in Zone 8B in southeastern North Carolina. I am kind of laughing because we are in August now, and I want to show you what my front yard gardens are looking like this time of year. And the reason I'm laughing is because at the start of the growing season, back in way early spring, that's when I get a lot of comments about people are like, oh, I'm so envious of your garden. Maybe people who are further north and their garden hasn't woken up as early as mine has. Well, guess what? This time of year is when I'm jealous of all of your gardens, because we have gotten such oppressive heat by this stage of the summer, and it's every year. This is not unusual. Very, very hot for such a long period of time that everything is kind of feeling tired and wimpy. Our added problem that we don't necessarily have every year is that we went through a very long period of drought, no rainfall to speak of at all. We have turned that corner, but everything kind of got really stressed out from the heat, and then all of a sudden it started to rain every single day. And actually, I am filming right now. Get a good look at this sun on me, because we are going to be in lots of rain for days to come. Our whole forecast is showing rain as a tropical storm is moving up toward us from Florida. So I'm filming in a little nook and cranny of time that I have before rain comes actually today as well. So as I show you my front garden, we are not looking at it like, oh my gosh, this is the best show you've ever put on, like I would say in May when I have gorgeous colors and so many wonderful things are in bloom. Now we're kind of like, oh, that's got some black spot on it, or that's got some white powdery mildew, or whatever it may be. But I still want to show you what's going on because it is important. We are in cycles in our gardens, and this is one of my cycles. So let me show you in the front, all of it, the good, bad, and the ugly. I was hoping I was going to get a shot while the sun was dipping behind a cloud, but I think it's back. Anyway, we're going to start just at this end of the peninsula garden, and we're going to just kind of rock and roll through it, not hopefully be too long or boring or going on about something you don't care about. My crepe myrtle is in bloom and it is looking lovely. These flowers take a beating though with the amount of rain that we're getting. So again, that's something to keep in mind here. Things have been quite soggy. So my yellow, oh my gosh, golden sword yucca. The golden sword yucca, that's looking amazing. When it stands up all on its own without wimping over or having any other sort of problems, that's my favorite. Golden sword yucca is evergreen. So I recommend that all the time. Just don't touch it because it is very, very spiky. Going in this direction though, I have like some good, some bad. The salvia is actually doing okay. It's still blooming, but I do have deadheading that has to be done on it to keep that going. But at least it's holding up okay. The funny thing to me is these mums that I have next to it, and again, mums always make me laugh when they bloom in the summer. I do deadhead them and then they bloom again in the fall. But, you know, of course, they're looking a little raggedy because they should be. They are like more cold temperature, in my opinion. That's always how I see them. But my cone flowers, particularly my Echinacea next to them, oh my gosh, not looking good at all. Tons of black spot. I mean, they just don't look great. Now my Echinacea started blooming way back in the earlier spring, and whereas like the Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susans next to them started much later. So the Rudbeckia is still looking awesome and showing a lot of color, but unfortunately my cone flowers, not so good. My cutie pie balloon flowers are coming back with some more blooms, so I do like that, and I do want to keep them deadheaded as well. But of course the second flush is never as plentiful as the first. And these Echinacea, so I still have a couple that are vibrant and pretty, but for the most part, you know, we're looking like that. Another golden sword yucca. These are, you can divide them. So this is why I get so many. And again, this one just looks so strong and awesome, and I'm not going to touch them. Back here, two things together. While these black-eyed Susans are so common and I have so many of them, look how pretty they are with the black and blue salvia. I like the salvia. This one anyway. I like this one a lot because of its height And then of course the color of the flowers. But hello, my Luna Rose tropical hibiscus, no, hardy hibiscus, hardy, not tropical, is coming back with some more blooms. Again, it's not going to be as plentiful as the first round, but we're still happy to see that. Looking from this point of view, brand new statue that my son just gave me. So I love that addition into the garden. And it is surrounded by my gorgeous double scoop Echinacea raspberry. Whatever. May have said that in the wrong order, but you get the picture. So those are awesome, but of course, they're newer. So they didn't have to suffer through all the massive heat and everything that we had a problem with. So if we're coming from this side of the peninsula garden, these are the Chinese asters, and some of them are looking a little raggedy already, and I almost wonder if the amount of water we're getting is too much for them, or if simply I keep them deadheaded and maybe they're going to keep coming back with blooms that are more vibrant. So I have never had Chinese asters before, so I don't know which is the right answer, but I'm hoping they stay longer because I haven't had this plant for very long at all. This is the Rudbeckia Autumn Colors. Again, this was a newer plant. This was all part of a little plant haul that I showed you with some things that I've never had before. The colors clearly are the reason why you get this plant, and for the most part, it looks good. But again, I think a little wimpy because of all the rainfall. If I've talked about my rocks before, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it again. My rocks are one of my favorite things in my garden. This one came from upstate New York. This has moss on it, which I love. I wasn't sure if moss was going to continue to grow on this rock once I moved it here, and I know it would depend on the angle of the sun and all of that kind of stuff, but the moss growing on this rock, I adore. I did not get any new big boulders carted in from any friends and family's properties this year. Just wasn't in the cards for the way we've been traveling. So alas, I think I have to wait till next year. Not buying any boulders to go in my gardens, I don't think. They're pretty expensive, especially around here. Everything is carted in because there are no rocks in coastal North Carolina where I am. Everything is sandy soil, flat land, etc. But the one thing I talk about all the time being plentiful for me are my blanket flowers. Now, I just did some garden maintenance very recently where I dug out a whole bunch of my blanket flowers, and I made space for things like the asters and these Rudbeckia, but you see, I still have a lot. Again, I can't possibly complain with the amount of blooms that I get. I'm just saying, very plentiful in this garden. You've seen my canna lilies in my backyard. They're one of my prized possessions back there in my tropical garden. They are huge and luscious, and my cannas up here in the front kind of suffer a little bit more. They don't do as beautifully. I say that as this Bengal tiger's getting pretty tall over here, but still nothing like the things that I have in the backyard. So just interesting to note, I have multiple varieties of canna lilies that are all in here, and they're all just kind of like okay. I love cannas though. I want them to be part of my garden, especially part of my summer garden, and if they can bloom for me in August and actually into fall and colder temperatures, then I still want them. This guara here is very cute, sweet, and delicate. I do feel like I need another one though to make it just pop a little bit more right here. My magnolia tree is what anchors my peninsula garden bed as we head this direction. And originally I just had this flower bed and I stopped it when it hit my fence. But I can't just leave it at that, and I needed to extend my garden, and I started going outside of my fence line so that we didn't just have solid fence for my neighbors to look at, and plus it gave me a place to put like overflow plants, divisions from inside my garden, things that, you know, benefit from being divided, and I put them out there. What has happened though is I like to call that area my island of misfit toys or my garden of misfit plants. I kind of put a lot of things out here and then don't really come back to visit till Christmas time. You get my point. Let me show you what's happening in the island of misfit toys. So first, let me give you a very broad view of the area that I'm talking about, and then we're just going to look a little bit closer. So I have this whole area, so it's from my fence line to basically my drainage ditch, or we call it a swale here. And I had major erosion issues going down this whole length of the property. And so my husband and I kind of thought, well, let's start some plantings up here, see what the heck we could do in the middle, which nothing yet. And then I have attempted a row of canna lilies right against the drainage ditch, thinking that this was all going to grow in quite beautifully, but it hasn't really worked out that way. Mainly, I'd like to say too, because our waterfall is not consistent. So our drainage ditch isn't always wet or always bone dry. It can go from either variation. So the cannas maybe get a little bit confused. However, this year they've been better than they have ever been. So that's canna lilies. And over here, this whole length, it has gotten quite big just even in this last year. Again, all things that I've divided up or have garden shared or whatever. Now, luckily, I have irrigation put in here with my drip irrigation system. If I didn't have that, I'm afraid I might not even be watering out here, because again, it's kind of like that area you don't really see and you kind of neglect. But let me show you what is happening and we'll go from there. So I've started to re-edge my flower beds because I find I have to do that as my grass tries to grow up in the flower beds. And so it's great. I'm, making sure my line stays pretty crisp. And the funny thing is, you can then see how far I've gotten and where else I need to go. So my line is made for a little ways here. And then I reach a point where I said, okay, I'm gonna stop that for now. Now here's a crepe myrtle that was just a baby, that propagated itself. I do really like the golden euonymus, and I have a huge one in a different part of my yard, but I have two out here that just are not huge at all. And these were tiger lilies. So I have these cannas. Now these are as tall as the ones in my backyard. I just have to get to deadheading them so that we can continue to have blooms like the others. So I have Joe Pye weed that I got from somebody else, and I can see that it is all seeded up, and then I go, oh shoot, I bet Joe Pye weed has to be deadheaded so that it can keep blooming. But I didn't know that because I don't really have experience with it. I'm sure that's true though. And Russian sage. I have a rock that I had painted, and I still absolutely love this quote, but the sun here is so brutal that I'm gonna have to redo that and get it looking more vibrant. More of the golden sword yuccas. Again, you can easily divide them. These were babies from other parts of the yard. The lemon coral sedum, which I'm hoping wants to take over a huge area here, but you can see, oh gosh, it's looking ratty. Plus I have so much grass I gotta pull out of there. So more cannas, because I have them, so why not? Autumn joy sedum, that came from my mom's house. Okay, so my hostas that are out here, we had kind of thought that they would be okay in the sun that it gets because it was so close to the drainage ditch, but they don't seem to be very happy, so I don't know. I don't know if maybe after this first year is over, they'll get stronger or what. I see some like gorgeous healthy leaves mixed in, but still all of this burn, that makes me feel awful. So more daylilies. Oh, by the way, I had planted bulbs in here. I had daffodils, they actually came up, but I planted allium bulbs, nothing. I planted seed zinnias and such, nothing. I'm gonna go with, this is a big fat weed. That is where I planted a bunch of seeds and didn't get anything good. Rose bush that I moved from inside, that's drift roses and it needs to be deadheaded very badly. Of course, black-eyed Susans that I moved here. Blanket flowers, oh my gosh, and they have to be deadheaded. Azalea bushes that my neighbor gave me. Don't be ashamed of me, neighbors. I'm gonna make them be awesome. Okay, so clearly I'm being honest with you about what's happening out here, and it's just I don't have the time to be everywhere all the time, and when something's out of my view, clearly, you know, it doesn't get the time it really needs. But here's my plan. I've had some people, neighbors that I don't know, drive by and say how gorgeous my garden is, and I think, oh my gosh, but you've never even seen my backyard, which makes me realize this is what they see. The Peninsula Garden is a great display, don't get me wrong, but seeing all of this is a little bit embarrassing. So when the cooler temperatures come, whenever the heck that is, I want to put in some great time out here to get this looking awesome, so that next year my starting point, I mean, I already have a lot of things in here, but I want everything to be nourished and healthy and feeling great. So we just saw a lot of junky looking stuff, but when we're back around the other side of my Peninsula Garden, I have this cordyline, which is awesome for me and stays as perennial. I have some beautiful lavender, the Purple Elegance lavender that sits just behind that black and blue salvia. I have zebra grasses that someone had given, more blanket flowers. Yeah, they're everywhere. I have some rose salvia. It's not looking great, but it seems to be a water issue, I feel like, when I look at it. But hello, phlox, adding that bit of bright color right there. And the Artemisia, I like Artemisia a lot. So I look forward to this baby spreading and taking up more room. Maybe even spreading all the way around this bird bath, because I have another plump right there. And then I have another gorgeous color of verbena, and that makes me happy as well. Ooh, just a little side note. See, my daylily has come back for just a few little buds and blooms. Nothing huge, but that makes me happy because it's the second time for this guy. Going up to my front porch, this is an area I both love and kind of don't love. It's looking, I don't know, I think I want more groupings of the same thing so they could all be near each other and take up a lot of like the empty space that I have, etc. Now, in fairness to myself, this is an area that I mainly created in the fall of last year. So I had started with some things like the kaleidoscope abelia. I have a few of them going that direction, etc. The hydrangea, all of these things were brand new to me last year. So that was a starting point. But again, maybe in the fall, I want to develop this a little bit better, get it looking a little bit more full, and again, having less of the mulchy areas. I did also add in the drip irrigation this year, and so that required some maneuvering of certain things and making sure I had the space for that. Nevertheless, the things that are looking pretty, this is the Dragon's Breath Celosia that I planted up. I had little seedlings that kind of like blew or dropped into my yard. Planted them up into this pot, so I love that. I do love the hydrangea. I like the pink verbena. It's a trailing verbena down below the hydrangea that honestly was looking better when the weather was colder, and it stayed blooming all winter. And now I think the major heat that we had with no rain, I think that made it start to go a little bit wonky. So that's something to note there. And then of course I have the red begonia, and the begonia just adds that color all the time. Speaking of color all the time, I have two babies over here that I want to point out because I always love to point them out. So this pot right here is one of my favorites because of this Dipladenia. Dipladenia is also, I want to say, favorite, and I'm not exaggerating. The Dipladenia is amazing because the colors are vibrant and also the blooms are plentiful. This plant, I want everyone to know you can overwinter it inside your house if you want to. I want to say that because I take this exact pot, Dipladenia and snake plant, bring it right inside the house. It's not even sitting anywhere particular, like right in front of a window or anything. And while it doesn't flower inside the house during the winter, it does keep its leaves. And then I pop it back out here when the temperatures are appropriate for both of these style plants, and it starts blooming again. I have also overwintered Dipladenia inside the greenhouse, but of course I realize not everybody has a greenhouse. So Dipladenia is amazing, and I can't say enough great things about it. And then this is the lantana. I understand that lantana can be invasive in certain areas, but it is not invasive here in North Carolina. This plant is another one that just blooms and blooms and blooms. So you end up having lots of flowers. They're not huge and showy, which is what I normally like, but there are a lot of them, so we get that color. And just tucked behind my lantana, I actually have a red canna lily that is starting to look good now. Like I said, the things in my front yard, not exactly as great and luscious as the things in my backyard. Nevertheless, that canna is still looking good up here. So as I said, I'm feeling quite jealous of people in a bit of a cooler climate who are not maybe suffering with the amount of heat that we have been for such a long time. Triple digits and everything is showing that kind of weight. At the same time, I am still very thrilled about my garden. Don't get me wrong. It's just maybe I wish I had a little bit more shade and I can enjoy some of these shade gardens that glorious that other people have. All of that kind of stuff. So is my August front garden as great as my May front garden? No, it isn't. There's nothing that can really be done about that. I don't want to add in things that may not tolerate this heat or whatever. And again, since everything moves in cycles, I'm probably going to have a really gorgeous, luscious looking garden in October and probably even still November. My things we probably won't even get frost until December. So my growing season is quite long. I cannot blame my plants for wanting to take a little bit of a snooze right now. So I hope you still enjoyed seeing what I have going on. Yes, I am standing in the back right now and I keep trying to look for little places where I can stand in some shade in my full sun gardens, of course, but as the sun is rising, we are having less and less shade to hide in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support, the wonderful comments. I appreciate those, and happy planting.